Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I go by Strange Online, and today we're going to be doing another episode of Sketch for Thought. For any of you guys that don't know, Sketch for Thought is a series that I wanted to start on my channel to basically talk about like stuff that isn't art related or fandom related, but still I thought was important to talk about. So it's mainly like a chill little series where I talk about life, maybe give some advice, some stuff that I've learned, experiences that I've gone through, and it's mainly just sort of a way that I'd use to I guess not vent, but like let out some of the experiences that I've gone through in hopes that maybe it'll help somebody else in the future. So I really wanted to talk about how I've grown as a person, how I better myself as a person, and how improvement can really suit anybody of any age. Growing up, I was never really a confident person. I wouldn't say that I was super cocky or I believed in my abilities and anything really strongly. Over time, I had to learn that confidence for myself, and it was a very difficult skill to learn. Something I learned that was really important was that confidence wasn't something that people were naturally born with or like had all the time. It's something that you kind of have to force. And I don't mean force in the way that, oh, like I have to really like exert myself to feel confident in myself. I mean it in the way that confidence isn't something that you pick up all at once. And that's only one of the traits that I've picked up over the years to better myself as a person. Being self-assured is something that not only helps me, but helps the people around me whenever I'm having a tough time and they don't exactly know how to help me. Being self-efficient has really helped me and other people in my life understand who I am and what my values are, because I'm able to express myself much more easily through that sort of scope. And I can talk about confidence all I want. I know it's one of those traits that a lot of people don't have, especially nowadays. I feel like a lot of people are prone to insecurity, which is fine because insecurity is like something that you learn over time. And a lot of people are at least insecure about one or two things in their lives, whether it be themselves or insecure about somebody else in their life. It really is not something that you can escape, unfortunately. And I think a lot of people either grow out of it or into it, and it's sort of dependent on the person, how that manifests in their life. Either way, I kind of don't want to stray into the confidence sort of conversation because I think it's a conversation I've had a lot of times with people. I think it's more so becoming a better person is more than just having confidence, but it's deciding what you're doing every day that kind of places you in a position to describe yourself in the future. What I mean by that is, what are you doing currently and what does that say about you? For example, I wouldn't say that currently I'm doing much, but I would say I'm still becoming a better person because I'm working on myself and how I understand things and how I communicate to people. And that is sort of not an outward extension of bettering myself, but instead it's more of an inward bettering myself. I'll be the first to admit something that I think a lot of people don't like admitting. I wasn't exactly like the best kid growing up. I don't mean this in the way where I was like a bully. You know, obviously it's bad if you've been like some sort of perpetrator in your life. Oh God, that's awful. And I mean perpetrator not like in this serious crime way, but in the way that you've done something bad that like make fun of somebody, or you've done a certain action towards someone that isn't illegal that still made you feel kind of crummy, like, oh, I'm an awful person for saying or doing this. That's what I mean. So when I say like doing something bad, I don't mean anything unlawful like SA or anything. But what I mean is that I haven't always made the right decisions or said the right stuff at the right time. In fact, I grew up a lot with being kind of socially just inept. I mean this in the way where sometimes I would say stuff that wasn't appropriate at the time, or sometimes I would do things that were like, why would you do that? Like, where's the logic behind it? And I had to learn how to just grow out of that because I had a lot of embarrassing moments growing up. I guess I'll be more specific because I don't want people to assume what I've done in my life. So when I was younger, I would get defensive about things that I did. Like, for example, if I was into art and somebody commented on my art in a negative way, I would take that to heart. I would go home, I'd probably cry about it because those things really hurt, especially when they were things that I cared about. Sometimes if I was in a really pissy mood, I would throw something back at them. Anything to sort of defend myself, because another thing I also felt a little insecure about when I was younger was like how much of an impact I made in the room, I guess. So I've always, just a little spoiler alert, I am not a very big person. I mean, like physically, I'm not a very big person. And I think growing up being a girl and also being a very short girl, a very small girl, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm petite because I don't have the figure of like a petite person, but I would say like I'm pretty damn short. And I've always been pretty short, but it was notable that I was smaller than everyone else. And part of me felt like because of that, I often got ignored or like pushed aside, or people would treat me younger than I am because of the way that I look as well. I look fairly young. I get told that I look like 16 when I'm already 21, nearing 22. So a lot of the time when I was younger, I would take that into a really great consideration of like offense. I did not like people basically babying me, and I don't think that it was wrong of me to feel defensive, but I think a lot of the time I didn't take it in the right way. I learned with time to ignore comments like that, but it was something that I've always felt like I had to defend myself from when I was younger. And a lot of people in my life have said stuff like, oh, well, like you really weren't that bad. Like, I think you think that you're worse than you were. But to be honest, I don't know if this is like a bad trait of mine, but I rather believe that I was a worse person than I am than a better person than I was. Not in the way that I want to constantly put my younger self down, because I've actually been learning how to forgive myself in that sort of regard, where I have to let go of the fact that yes, I was naive as a kid. Yes, I made some stupid decisions as a kid. But yes, there was like a bunch of bad traits, and becoming a better person was also just acknowledging that these traits were mine. You know, in the debate of nurture versus nature, I'm a very nurture person. Like, I do believe that there is no such thing as naturally being like evil in the world. I think that's something that is taught over time. I think that there are mental disabilities that can affect those things, but I don't think that anybody who is born as a child, you know, into this world is naturally evil. I don't know. That might be an optimistic way to look at things, but I don't think that my traits or anybody else's traits are something that comes out of nowhere or comes from a family member. As I was saying before, the first step is definitely just acknowledging your faults. I think a lot of people can get stuck in this point because it's so difficult to acknowledge the fact that, hey, like, obviously you're not perfect, especially when that's all you're thriving to be. And it's also acknowledging the fact that there's a possibility you may never be the person that you really truly want to be. But the first step is really trying to improve yourself from there. What I mean by that is that a lot of the time when I was younger, I knew that I wanted to be a better person, whether it was like a better friend, a better colleague, a better like family member. But a lot of the time I would think that and not exactly act on it. Even though I thought that I was putting in the most effort, I was actually not putting any at all, because it wasn't towards me exactly. It was more towards the people in my life. Like, I thought that because I'm doing more things for my friends or doing things for my family, that it was basically the equivalent of becoming a better person. But the reality is that becoming a better person wasn't just doing things for my friends and family, it was doing things for myself. Because working on yourself is a lot more harder than, in my opinion, helping somebody else. At least for people like me who are really concerned about other people's feelings. I'm a really like empathetic person. I try to be as understanding as I can. It was easier for me to help people than it was to help myself. And that was the true challenge of becoming a better person, was accepting the fact that if I truly wanted to be somebody who I would look up to in my life, then that meant I had to do something about me as a person. I had to become a happier person. I had to become a more confident person in order to reach the person that I wanted to be. Because the person that I want to be is somebody who's self-assured, somebody that, people can go to and talk to and feel like they have some sort of stability in their life, even if it's not 100%, the case. So after I accepted all these flaws, all my lack of confidence, all my like sort of hot-headed moments, I decided that that was where I needed to start making action, like considerable action that wasn't just me sort of helping people, which is fine, is great. It's something that I was proud of, that I was a understanding person and that I could help people when they really needed it, but it wasn't everything that I was, and it wasn't supposed to be everything that I was. So the ways that I personally worked on myself were sort of minute. I did go to therapy, and I will preface this by saying therapy is good. It can be good, it can be great. Me personally, I just did not really mess with therapy that much, and that doesn't mean that therapy is bad, but personally, I didn't like therapy. I didn't feel like it was helping me. I didn't feel like, maybe, I know that some people say like, oh, you just have to switch therapists and try a bunch, it can change over time, and I do agree, there's a possibility, but I just was not messing with therapy as a concept as a whole. I did learn some valuable things from therapy, but overall I didn't feel like it was really progressing me in the way that I felt was important. I think they were talking more about my issues than me as a person and my overall life scope. And I understand that they don't want to overwhelm their patients with something that, is really big, like how the type of person I want to be, or like what the meaning of life is, or like anything crazy. They were more concerned about stuff like anxiety or depression or anything like that. I didn't really want help like that, at least for my betterment as a person. Obviously, anxiety is a big part of something that I'm dealing with personally, but it isn't me as a person. And I felt like a lot of time being in therapy was reducing my issues to having anxiety. And I know that's not the case for everybody, which is why I really heavily implore people to try therapy once or twice. I would say twice to be sure, because different therapists have different methods, But I do believe that therapy isn't for everyone, as helpful as it can be. So that's solution number one. But something I do personally to remedy not going to therapy is kind of still using similar methods to therapy, just outside of therapy, and instead doing it myself. And that way I kind of know my limits and I kind of know where I should be going. I think this also requires knowing yourself, which is why I think like the first step is knowing your flaws and just understanding yourself in general, because I don't think you could really do a lot of the things that you need to better yourself without actually understanding who you are when everything is said and done. So things like affirmations, I especially talk myself through a lot of situations that I find myself in. So if I'm having a hard time, one of the things that I do is explain the situation to myself, like go through the motions, allow myself to feel out whatever I'm feeling, because I don't want to seclude my emotions and be like, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this, and like basically punishing myself or avoiding a lot of what's happening. I feel like that's something that I used to do a lot, and something I'm trying to stray away from doing is like avoiding either a topic or a situation because it makes me uncomfortable. Because the truth of the matter is that there's going to be a lot of situations that make you uncomfortable, especially in life overall, right? But regardless, you have to go through these situations because you can't just ignore your problems. I mean, people can try, surely, but it's not really a solution. It's more just a temporary remedy, and it's really not going to help you. I say that difficult situations are somewhere where you could really practice your betterment as a person. How you react is something that is also a large part of who you are, but it's also like daily things, like how you think and how you talk and how you speak to other people, that determines who you are as a person. So in situations, I try to walk myself through whatever is happening. I don't like not fully understanding a situation. I try to not put myself in a situation where I have to make decisions with limited information, because that just does not feel right in the slightest for me. For me to be a better person, I know that I need to respond in a way that I believe a good person would respond. So I don't like to immediately make quick decisions without understanding a situation. I don't like anything like that. And I know if I want to be a better person, that's something I have to work on because it's something that I've seen a flaw within myself in the past of like reacting without fully understanding. I've always been somebody who needs full context for things. I've always been that type of person. But I will say, like, I've made the mistake once or twice of just not fully understanding something and kind of jumping to conclusions. So that's in one regard. The truth of the matter is that there's no one way to become a better person. To become a better idealized version of yourself, you need to understand what your flaws are personally, and everybody's flaws aren't going to be the same. I may not have confidence, but there is somebody out there who has way too much, and that person needs to do something else than what I'm doing currently. So again, this is regarding what your flaws are, and I'm only really talking about what my flaws are, so this is the stuff I do for my flaws. You need to figure out what you need to do in order to help yourself. That's one thing that I will say. You need to help yourself and you need to want to help yourself. If you're only doing this in order to fulfill something for someone or because you feel like you have to and not because you want to, then you're never really going to see that improvement because you need to be motivated to do these things. Talking to yourself takes a lot of effort. Controlling your responses and knowing when you need to walk away from situations is also something that takes a lot of effort. Because those things take effort, you need to know what your limit is and you need to actually want to do this. You need to actually want to improve and you need to understand that these things will not happen overnight. Something that I personally have an issue with within myself as well is that I take myself very seriously and I take my improvement very seriously. And when I don't improve, I have a habit of shaming myself because I feel like I should be doing better. But the truth of the matter is that, yeah, I could be doing better, but not doing better does not mean I'm not improving overall. These things take time, and you need to kind of trust yourself that you will improve. No matter how long it takes, you will improve. You need to have faith in yourself. You need to trust yourself to really keep yourself motivated. And if you fall back and go back into something of an old habit, it doesn't mean that it's completely over, you're a terrible person, and you'll never improve. It just means that you need to start over and you need to take it more seriously. And if that means messing up 20 more times, then so be it. I think the truth is that people need to always be improving, even when you've already reached the max. I will say, like, take breaks. Do not push yourself to a limit that is impossible. And everybody views good people as different things. What a good person to me is may not be the same thing for another person. So defining who you want to be is not just being a good person, but it's the traits that you require to really feel proud of yourself. Like I said before, I want to be a confident person. I want to be self-assured. I want to be there for people in a way that really counts. And those are pretty general traits to have. And maybe there's something more or something less that somebody's looking for. Maybe somebody just wants to be confident and they don't really need all the extra stuff. Maybe they already have all the extra stuff. Either way, that's really dependent on them and on you. So I was talking about my reactions, about how I handle situations, but I think another important thing to know is being kind to myself and understanding myself and knowing that I'm not going to magically fix myself in one day is a whole different thing. At least for me, I think it's easy to either not push myself enough or push myself too much. I think I fall on either side of the spectrum and it can be really difficult to have that balance, but balance is something that you kind of need to properly adjust this yourself. This is why therapy is great for some people, because sometimes there needs to be a third person to tell you, hey, you're doing too much. You're pushing yourself too hard. Personally, I kind of try my best to recognize patterns in my behavior that are telling signs that I'm doing too much or too little. I don't rush my change. I don't rush my progress in becoming who I want to be for the future. But I do know that, like, okay, if it's been like a year and I have a small habit that I still haven't gotten rid of, maybe I should do more to improve myself, you know? And it's not something that I punish myself over, or I try my best not to punish myself over it. As I might have not said before, but I will say now, I'm not perfect. I'm offering all this advice, but there's truth in, like, I have not always followed my own advice. I have made mistakes countless times, and I'll continue to make mistakes because I'm not perfect. But I am trying my best to become somebody that I can be proud of and somebody that I can look up to metaphorically. And for me, that's what really counts. So to leave it off, I would say that being a better person is understanding yourself, wanting to improve, and truly following what your mind and heart needs. That might all sound like corny. It might all sound kind of like, uncool, maybe. I'm not sure. But it really is just something that I've learned personally. And I think that a lot of people should know more about it. And just, I don't know. I think that it would be really gratifying to see a lot more people put effort within themselves and not completely give up on themselves when things go wrong. I think people are really quick to just say, like, this is the way I am. I'll never change. I can't change. It's impossible. And that's a lot of catastrophizing and just a lot of stuff like that. But I am here to say you can change. If you truly want to change, you can change. It's not impossible. Sometimes you need another person, sometimes you don't. But I don't want, like, anybody to kind of think, man, I'm the worst person on this earth. Nothing can change me. I'm an awful person. And because, that feeling isn't great. And I understand that. So if there's one thing to take away from my experiences, even though I didn't really speak directly or specifically about my experiences, it would be that growth takes a very long time, and sometimes it's quicker for some people, sometimes it's slower for some people, but trust in yourself to change and it will happen, no matter how fast or how slow that progress goes. To be a better person, you also have to find something to inspire you to be a better person sometimes. Sometimes people need some reason to be a better person, whether that is for family or friends, but at the end of the day, you really should become a better person for yourself because you want to feel better about yourself. There might be a day where those people that you are inspired by may, pass, or they may not inspire you as much as they used to. You may become enemies. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know. But doing something for yourself and looking out for yourself is something that you'll always have you. You're always going to have you, and nobody can take away yourself. Treat yourself kindly and just know that you're not perfect, whether you think you're on top of the world or on the very bottom. Take action, know that you are in charge of your life, and nobody can take that away from you. Thank you for watching another episode of Sketch for Thought, and comment down below any of your own experiences, any advice you'd like to offer up, or just like anything, Leave a like if you like this video and consider subscribing if you want more content like this. Seeing the support lets me know that you guys also liked it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!